All right, YouTube friends, we are back for another episode, and you can see Jordan is clearly not in a storage closet this week at Richmond Raceway. They have nicer accommodations at Richmond than Atlanta.
You said that, not me. I'm not taking any
No,
shots at any
it's just a fact. It's just a fact. Richmond has nice radio rooms for recording. I've been in some of those. You know, some tracks just have, you know, they're like, hey, let's build a little podcast room here, a radio room for people that might want to do stuff instead of like you're in the storage closet. So congrats on a nice background this week. That's good.
Yeah, it's not bad. Richmond had a renovation here a few years ago. They've done a nice job. This is a very fan friendly track. I will say that.
All right. Well, let's get into the podcast because I know we have a lot to talk about across all three series. So.
Can't wait.
All right, let's go. All right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Teardown. My name is Jeff Gluck, and I'm along with my coworker, Jordan Bianchi. We are motorsports writers for The Athletic, and we are here today to talk about the Richmond race for NASCAR, but also the great IndyCar race at Texas Motor Speedway and the chaotic F1 race in Australia that for some reason we both stayed up for and maybe regretted it.
No regrets. Right? It was great.
No regrets? Okay.
It was the last 30 minutes of that race made it well worth it.
I don't know. I've been kind of, I mean, here I've got my the Athletic coffee mug. This has been nonstop all day, just drinking. I mean, it's, whew, that was a late night.
Like you couldn't sleep in?
I have two kids. You think they don't care whether I stayed up late watching a
You can't tell them like,
race?
Go away, dad's sleeping, go do something on your own? I feel like it's just like seriously, if it was me, like they came into my room and like said, "Hey, Dad, we're up." Like, good, go away. I'm sleeping.
My 2-year-old at 6:30 a.m. as every day starts going, "Dada, dada, dada." I can't just like leave her in her crib and be like, "Hey, I know you don't understand this, but I'm tired, so just stay in there for a while. Just entertain yourself."
Why? Like why? Like I mean, she's fine. She's safe. She's not going anywhere.
All right. Yeah. I'm glad you're not a parent, Jordan. I'm glad. I would worry about your prospective children, but I know that's never gonna happen anyway. Anyway, yeah. An argument could be made to talk about any of the other races first, but since you're at Richmond, let's go ahead and talk about that. The one that was freshly completed. We've for a long time had Richmond pretty far down on our list. I'm not saying it's quite at Texas level, although now Texas for IndyCar moving up a little bit. But NASCAR wise, it's been like Richmond. However, today, at least the numbers show that it was improved, right? I'm not saying it was old school Richmond, but I think it had the most 22 lead changes is the most since there was 23 in the Carl Edwards race that he won in 2016, and 8 cautions, although 3 of those were planned cautions, but still 8 cautions, the most since 2017. And it felt like guys could move around a little bit more. They weren't stuck.
Comers and goers.
Yeah, I mean, and certainly when you factor in the tire strategy and stuff.
It was I always say this term, like it was perfectly acceptable. It wasn't like a race you're going to remember like years from now going, oh man, that was a great race. Remember that? But it was like, certainly a lot better than the last few Richmond races, which, is an improvement. So I think that's a good thing. And I wasn't, maybe not the most sexy storylines that come out of this, but it was much better than what we've seen, which is, again, that's a win.
Well, yeah. And again, like it wasn't bad, which, I mean, it's a low bar. It's a low bar. Recent Richmond races, right?
I have a saying about low bars, and I can't say it on this podcast because we have to be family friendly.
Oh, okay. Well, tell me off air afterwards. I haven't heard that one. But anyway, look, it was a race and it was fine. It was decently watchable, and you move on, right? So, and again, like you said, storyline wise, if you were going to go into the weekend and say, oh, a Hendrick car won and William Byron dominated, and actually it was really Larson and William Byron dominating the race, you'd be like, oh, so like a bunch of other races this year so far, especially like within the last month. This time, though, the script was flipped. Instead of, Larson maybe like dominating the whole race like he did at Phoenix, and then Byron kind of getting at the end there. it was Larson who kind of took it away from Byron after Byron, he was going to win without the late caution. And then, his team had not such a great pit stop, just loses a couple positions. And that's all it took for him to get back in the pack, where Ross Chastain makes it 3 wide, which, by the way, I don't fault Ross Chastain at all.
We should talk about that.
We will. Yeah. Christopher Bell then, I guess he makes a sort of a weird sweeping move up the track and just takes out William Byron in sort of a moment of, I don't really know what was going on there. Then after the race, Christopher Bell, I've seen some of the videos from reporters on pit road. Noah Lewis posted this video, called him a wrecking ball. Ross
wrecking ball.
Ball.
I was gonna say, like, that's something to watch, because they've had a little bit of run-ins before. Last year at Michigan, they got into it. So Bell was kind of on that he was on the not Ross Chastain fan club list, right? And there's been a few times this year where Bell's made some comments, and he's not somebody who's outspoken and is out to make waves. So him kind of saying this is notable. It seems like there's a little bit of underlying circumstance there, between these two.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, but just objectively looking at the replay and everything, first of all, Ross Chastain didn't make any contact. Second of all, everybody's trying to make it 3 wide. It's a late race restart. You're trying to make it 3 wide. You're trying to dive bomb the bottom. That's what everybody's doing.
He's an easy person to blame.
He was in the area, but Bell was the one that came up and took Byron out. He's the one that has control of his cars. I don't really get, blaming Chastain there for that and calling him a wrecking ball when Bell was, I get the situation, and Bell's frustrated and it's right after the race, but he still finished 4th. Byron's the one that finished 24th. If anything, you'd be like, man, look, I happy with the top 5. Hate I got into Byron. Definitely didn't mean to do that. I was just trying to defend on Chastain and just, miscalculated when I came up, and, definitely apologies to Byron or whatever. But instead it's like, oh, the wrecking ball did what he always does. Bonsai.
Yeah, he didn't mention him by name either. Like, he said wrecking ball, and then it was like, do you mean Chastain? He's like, yeah, the wrecking ball. I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah. So, I didn't, I guess, love that, just because it feels like it's just so easy. It's just like, cliche to blame Chastain for everything.
It is. Part of it's like, I get it. When you put yourself in that situation, you're going to get the fingers pointed at you, but it's also goes with the territory, and you just kind of got to run with it. And okay,
Yeah. Look, Chastain, the thing with Suarez and Bowman last week. Chastain was part of that for sure. Like, he got into the back of Bowman, who then got into Suarez. But that's, again, he was far from the only one doing that. Then you have the incident where people wanted to blame him. What was it, Atlanta, for spinning out Harvick, even though he didn't even touch Harvick. Again, it's always Ross. If he's anywhere nearby, that guy, wow, he's terrible.
The thing is, though, like, you can blame Ross for being overly aggressive, and I'm not saying he's not. Obviously, there's enough examples to say that he is. It is working for him. Like, we keep talking about, like, oh, he's got to play nice, and he's gonna have all these enemies. Like, it's working for him. Like, he finished good today. Like, he rallied from 30th something last week to leave with a top 5 finish. Like, I've gotten to the point, like, I don't think he needs to change anything. Like, it's working for him. He's doing it well. He's not winning races, but he's putting himself in position to win races. He almost won the championship this year. He's second in the points, I believe, after today. Like, keep doing what you're doing. Who cares if you're making everybody mad, because it's working.
Other people make other drivers mad too. It's just he's got his reputation. I just think too that again, he hasn't done anything recently. The Hamlin stuff, you can make an argument, but he hasn't done anything recently where you're like, oh, he's going to get paid back for that. People will race him hard, but he races hard too, so he expects it. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing. Like, he doesn't complain. Like, if you race him hard, like AJ Allmendinger said this a few weeks ago, is like, AJ's like, he races you hard, but he doesn't care if you get into him because he expects it. Like, it's all fair, love and war.
Yep. Well, as it turns out, neither of those guys end up winning, along with Byron as well. Look, we talk about alternate narratives here, and definitely an easy alternate narrative would have been Byron already wins his 3rd race of the year in a week when he just got his 10 playoff bonus points back and his 100 points. Byron is unstoppable. Then you could expand that to Byron Larson. Oh, Larson keeps coming up short. This time, though, Larson didn't come up short because he came out first on that pit stop. Josh Berry, his teammate subbing for Chase Elliott, comes up second. They end up finishing 1-2. and Larson gets his first win of the year. Larson said even after the race, like, I've had to watch the other night. I was kind of bored, watched YouTube videos of myself to remind me, like, that I used to be good. The reporter from the Charlotte Observer asked him to expand on that. And he said, it's even things like the interviews, like, what was I saying? What was my mindset at the time in my 2021 season where I was doing so well? Just comparing it to how I think now, because the next gen it's hard to be dominant in that way. So, but the bottom line is, look, this race was either going to be a Hendrick or Gibbs car all day. It felt like
that to me is the interesting narrative, because you're talking about alternative timelines. As good as Hendrick was, and they were really good, especially in the first half of this race, you could make a case that Martin Truex Jr. or Denny Hamlin should have won this race, and at least been more of a factor at the end than they were. But in Hamlin's case, 2 speeding penalties, an issue on pit road, his day's over. Truex, the caution came out at the horrible time, and he got he got caught with an extra set of tires, and he slid backwards. Like, both of those guys at the end of the race probably had the fastest cars. They just didn't have the track position, and it's weird because they were better than Hendrick was at the end of the race. They couldn't close out. Instead, it's another win for Hendrick, which is their 3rd now in 7 races, and Joe Gibbs Racing is just moving on, and they're still looking for their first win.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a case to be made for that too. I mean, when you look at sort of the 3 more veteran JGR drivers, all led at least 25 laps. Denny led 71, Truex led 56, Bell led 26, and then you have Ty Gibbs getting his 3rd straight top 10. He finished 9th. So yeah, but to me though, like, when we're looking at this race, and it's going to be most races this season, it's like, okay, Hendrick, Gibbs, maybe you throw Penske in there sometimes, maybe you throw a Trackhouse in there sometimes, maybe you throw a Harvick in there sometimes, maybe Kyle Busch every once in a while, maybe 23XI every once in a while. But that's consistently, we're talking about the powerhouses, and that's what it just over and over again, we keep seeing, even though it's only 7 races into this year, we keep getting little more pieces of the puzzle, piece of evidence that it's going to be the kind of season where the usual suspects for most of the tracks that we go to, those are going to be the names that we expect to be up there.
I would agree with all that, and I would actually go that a step farther and see, like, Hendrick to me is separating itself a little bit. Yeah, JGR was really good today, but it doesn't matter the style of racetrack. We talk about how Ford, they're really only good on super speedways. Toyota, they're kind of a little bit hit or miss, right? We don't know when they're going to be great. They were really good today. They were just okay at Fontana. They kind of been off a little bit, but consistently, really, from every race, doesn't matter the track, Hendrick Motorsports is in contention. Like, they've got guys in the mix. Like, they are, you can talk about the variables with this car. They have figured it out where every week they're bringing cars to the racetrack that are capable of winning. No other organization is really doing that on a consistent level.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we know that not having your crew chiefs is not a big disadvantage, right? Because the crew chiefs are still calling all the shots at the shop during the week, and they're, helping with strategy when, even during the races, and they're getting communication and stuff. But the fact is that, you see Kyle Larson, Cliff Daniels, not in person at the track, not in person for the race weekend, they get a win, right? So, their organization is strong. They're doing it in many ways. And with them getting all their points back, which I'm sure we'll talk about here, because I know we both have strong feelings about that. Look, they're just, it just feels like they are really, if something doesn't happen, and I don't know what that would be, this season could easily get completely blown open by Hendrick. Because look, when Chase comes back, and kudos to Josh Berry for salvaging a second place finish today, right? But the only reason he got up there is because, look, he had to start in the back because of the qualifying metric, right? So he's running in the 30s. He gets spun by Ryan Blaney, and he's able to work his way back up. And then they play that strategy, and he's able to, get the beneficiary of a timely caution. And then the pit crew gets him out second, and he's able to stay there, for the late restart. And, he gets a great finish. But there's been multiple races in the past few weeks where if Chase Elliott was in that car, that it's going to be performing better than Josh Berry. And again, that's just Josh Berry doesn't have the experience yet. Chase Elliott is a championship driver, future Hall of Famer already. Once you start putting Chase in those cars, combined with how well they've been running, I mean, Hendrick is just, I mean, yikes.
I'm looking at it right now, and I think I would say there's only one race this year, Atlanta, where you didn't feel like a Hendrick car was in the mix. And even the Daytona 500, like Kyle Larson was running really well. Alex Bowman was running well. Byron was going to have a good day until he got caught up in the wreck. Like every single week they're running well. Atlanta was the exception. And like to your point, when you bring Chase Elliott back, he's going to start doing this. And I mean, you can make a case for all four of these guys having realistic championship hopes. And, Alex Bowman, who kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. Oh, by the way, is leading the point standings. like it's just, he just keeps knocking out top 10 finishes every week. He's not winning stages. He's not leading laps. It doesn't matter. He's just finishing well. He's getting the most out of it. Like, it's just, this is a Hendrick world right now. And it feels like everybody's just kind of living in it.
Yeah. I mean, there's been storylines at times. I remember one of the years, there was a storyline of, could all four Gibbs drivers make it to the Final Four? And I think the way it's shaping up, what's that?
2016, which, yeah.
The way this is shaping up, if they continue on this path, because they're going to, like you said, even with Bowman, yeah, he hasn't won yet. Yeah, he's not running up front, but he's the points leader. So, he got his points back. And if he's able to get, say 10 playoff points, if he's able to hang up there, or even, 9, 8, or whatever he's going to do, if he's this consistent, and then you would think at some point he's going to win. Chase Elliott's going to win after he comes back. Byron's going to keep winning. Larson's going to keep winning. For most tracks, every week when you show up, it's going to be like, okay, the Hendrick guys are probably going to be the ones to beat, depending on the track. But in general, that's how it's going to be. And then you look, okay, well, can JGR do something to sneak this out here? What can Penske do? And then you go on from there. But Hendrick right now, what can you say? I mean, they're just on it.
They're on it, and they've had a very, very good week.
Well, let's talk about that good week because, look, we did not agree with this decision.
No.
At least I haven't. And
no,
you had a great article, and I really think that people, if you haven't read this yet, you guys should go read Jordan's article that he did. He went around the garage on Friday at Richmond, and he talked to 9 crew chiefs and 3 competition directors or something like that. And you gave them anonymity so that they could express their true thoughts without getting a fine or whatever for expressing your thoughts, which we know happens. And, they were really upset. People are really upset if you're not Hendrick Motorsports right now, because it'd be one thing if if the appeals panel for the Hendrick case had come out and said, you know what, we disagree that Hendrick violated the rules. We think that they did not violate the rules, and then therefore we are rescinding the penalty. And granted, we don't get a lot of details when the appeals panel sends out this email. It's very short on details. It basically says, here's the 3 bullet points, right? Like, so did we agree or disagree that they violated the rules as laid out? And then here's the penalty, and we, either keep this or adjust it or whatever, right? So they send out the email after the Hendrick appeal, and they say, yes, we agree with NASCAR that they did violate all the rules that NASCAR said. So everything that NASCAR cited Hendrick Motorsports for with modifying the louvers, yes, they did. They did modify the louvers. They did do it without permission. They did have a single source part and all the stuff that they weren't supposed to touch. And they mess with it. Now, then the appeals panel says, well, you know what though? Your punishment for that, we don't really agree with NASCAR, even though that's what it says in the rule book. That's what the penalty is if you violate these rules. These are the options. This is the menu of options that NASCAR has, and that NASCAR was exactly consistent with other teams last year that have had the same penalty. The appeals panel says, you know what, Hendrick, here, just take all your points back, which is the actual
the
part
only
of the
thing that matters.
Yes.
Like,
but
that matters.
Keep your crew chief still suspended, and then give the $400,000 still, like they care. But yeah, take all your points back, take all your playoff points back. Yeah, you got it. Like, what in the world was the appeals panel thinking? That is like, look, it's a little bit tough for me to stand here sometimes and be like, I feel bad for NASCAR, but I tell you what, I
In this
felt really
case,
bad for
it's
NASCAR
hard
this week.
not to be. Like you yell, we get on them about being inconsistent. You want consistency. Playing favorites. They didn't play favorites here with Hendrick. They came down heavy on him. They did everything they were supposed to do, and at the end of the day, it didn't matter. Like Hendrick got his points back. Was the only thing that mattered. To a man, everyone I talked to said the same thing. We will gladly trade our crew chief. I will gladly sit out 4 races and pay the 6-figure fine if it meant winning a race or it meant gaining a speed advantage. Denny Hamlin said he would do the same thing, like as a team owner, like absolutely. And so that's where this confusion is. And it's like, and there's some people that read the article and they're a little bit, maybe I could have laid it out more clear. I don't, but it's not a NASCAR thing. Like the frustration is with the appeals board and them not like, what are you doing? Why did you rule this way? What were you thinking? And now do you understand the ramifications for this and how you took something that was very black and white, which is very rare when it comes to the rule book, something very black and white, and now you just added this huge gray area that's where teams are going to feel very emboldened to say, hey, wait a second, if Hendrick is doing this, especially one of the 4 big teams, where they're going to be like, hey, you know what? If they can do it, we've got the depth and we've got the resources to be able to get away with this. Like, why not? And it's going to be very fascinating to see what the fallout from this is over the next few weeks. I think anticipate NASCAR making some kind of rule book change because that's what they do. But even then, like I still think there's going to be teams that say, wait a second, it might be worth it to try to get away with something.
But see, what can you do with the rule book if you're NASCAR? Because they follow the rule book exactly how it's supposed to be. Yeah. It's the appeals. I mean, if anything needs to be changed, the appeals panel and the appeals panel process to let NASCAR be like, look, I think it should be, okay, appeals panel, we'll have this appeals panel place. We'll have this process in place. And if you want to tell us, if you want to agree with the team that they actually did not violate the rule and you want to overturn it, that's fine. But if you agree that they broke the rules, then you have to go, we have to be allowed to dole out the punishments how we see fit. They are the police. They are policing the garage and trying to maintain the sense of order. These people just completely came along and took the teeth out of their penalty. And it's almost like, let's say like a local, a county or whatever said to their sheriff's department, all right, you can no longer give speeding tickets. You can only give warnings every time somebody's speeding. Well, all of a sudden you'd be like, oh, I'm just going to go down the road and go 90 because if I get pulled over, they can't give me a ticket. They can't put any points on my license. They can't make me go to court. They can't make me go to driving school. They can't make me pay a fine. They're going to give me a warning. Okay, the guy pulls me over and says, all right, you really shouldn't go that fast, sir. Make sure you watch your speed. Okay, officer, no problem. And you go along. You know what I'm saying? Like that would be, after a while, you just stop pulling people over because what's the point? So, like, and then you'd have people speeding all up and down the road. This is sort of what's happening now, right? Or what has the potential to happen because, look, I mean, I'm not saying I would go out of the way to get caught in it by any means, but you kind of know, like, all right, if we, and let me back up for a second too, because one thing that really stuck out to me in your article was the people expressing how disappointed they were that they've been trying so hard to make sure everything is right, to make sure, okay, like, look, guys, we know that these parts aren't made the right way or whatever. I'm like, okay, that's not good, but like, we've been told not to do this. Let's just make sure they're all right. Let's make sure we're buttoned up here, guys. We don't want any of these penalties. Let's really spend a lot of time to get this right. Hendrick was like, hey, these don't fit. We're going to make them fit. Okay. Like, sorry.
And we admitted we tried to make, like, Chad Knaus admitted, like, they didn't fit. We tried to make them fit. Like, there's not like Hendrick's denying that they did anything. Like, they're very adamant. Like, we did it. Yeah, we did it. But here's why we did it. It's a fascinating thing.
Yeah. And so obviously the appeals panel agreed with them. Like, well, that's not good that, I mean, I'm assuming, because we don't get the information from them, but I'm assuming the appeals panel is like, look, I mean, all right, maybe you tried to get communication on this or clarification on this. And, and I think the other thing too, like, and this is what I know a lot of people are probably listening right now and yelling at us, because I got yelled at on Twitter for this, but people are going to say,
reading your comments.
Well, I mean, it helps to know what people are saying. But people are, the Hendrick fans or a lot of supporters, I think that their counter argument is, well, wait a minute now, they didn't race with this. They did not race with these parts.
Yeah.
So I have a counter argument to this, but how do you respond to that?
Well, I mean, the first and foremost is it doesn't matter whether they race with it or not. The rule book does state when you come on property, your car is supposed to be legal. If you unload your race car, it is supposed to be legal in race condition then. And if it's not, you can be penalized. And NASCAR has the option to tech your car or go through it whenever they want. And if they find something along the way, whether you've been through tech or not, whether there's been on track activity or not, you can be found guilty.
I don't like the idea that, because basically what people are essentially saying is, okay, let's say NASCAR suspected this or thought this was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wait till they race it. And then let's say they win a race or finish top 5. Then you start throwing them out, throw out their,
No, I mean you're supposed to tech cars before so you don't have these problems. Like you don't want to start throwing out if you can prevent having to throw out and DQ a winner, then you sure as hell do it because it's a bad look for everybody. And you also want to run the race on Sunday with the idea that everybody's racing up and up. Like everybody straight up has legal cars, not of, hey, man, these guys win. Watch what's going to happen here. Like you're not out to send these messages because then your audience, your fans, aren't getting what they paid for. That's not how you officiate any sport.
And also, if you let them practice with it and say, okay, yeah, go ahead and practice, you're basically giving them free R&D on a part that they're not supposed to have. And now they can say, oh, well, okay, let's take it off of the race. Let's take it off the race. But now we know what it does. Like, let's say, right? Or, here's another argument. They don't tech the entire field after the race anyway. Mm-hmm. So, if you're not in the top 5, let's say you had these and you finish 6 or something. I mean, again, and look, do I think that this has maybe anything at all to do with Hendrick's speed? I don't think probably.
I mean, the
even
same
1%.
Weekend, like William Byron and Kyle Larson dominated that race. It didn't, at least in that instance, it sure as heck didn't. Now, as I had a conversation with somebody on the NASCAR side, like you don't do anything to your race car without thinking that it's going to gain some kind of advantage. So,
well, sure, and especially for a part that is redirecting the airflow, and it's an aero part essentially, right? So, and blowing it over the top of the car. So I mean, if it doesn't fit and you make it fit, sure, I'm sure that helps. Again, that's not what's responsible for their speed, but it's also something the rest of the field is not doing. And the whole point of this car is to have it be as close as possible, or at least have the perception or the knowledge of the in the garage that like, okay, like this is a relatively even playing field. I mean, obviously you still have some cars faster than others, but it's the same parts and pieces for the most part. And I feel like something NASCAR is going to have to now change the appeals process, which is, I'm sure going to be a whole thing, but they can't keep losing appeals like this because, when the appeals panel says they did this, you're right, NASCAR, you got this right, but that's not the penalty. Sorry, no, I don't believe in that. I just don't.
I want to get like, why do you think they won the appeal? Because I mean, I've heard so many different theories, and like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I hear. Why do you think they won the appeal?
First of all, they didn't win it.
Well,
right? I mean, technically they didn't win it.
Technically win it, but they won it. Like,
but so I think that's going to be my answer, is that my perception would be, and because they've done this a few times, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of just saying, all right, we're going to agree with this all on one side or the other, or, we're going to throw it out, or we're going to whatever. Instead of making a decision, which is tough. Look, I mean, I've talked about before the season, I was on jury duty, and you feel a lot of weight and pressure to make a decision that is going to have an effect one way or the other. But by doing this, the appeals panel essentially tries to say, well, you didn't get you're not getting what you want out of everything, and you're not getting what you want. So it's kind of a good compromise. Like they're almost acting like like when a baseball player goes to arbitration or something, and be like, well, let's find a happy ground. But that's not what they're supposed to be. Judges. They're not supposed to be an arbitration group where they come to common ground or find the best thing, right? So I don't. That's that's what it feels like could be happening. But again, we don't know. What's your personal theory on that?
So I've got 5. They're not mine. This is just what I've heard.
Oh, okay.
I got 5 of them here, and I'm going to
5 theories.
5 theories on why, and I think you've heard these too. These are 5 theories on why NASCAR has struggled with appeals. And this even goes back to last year, like they lost the William Byron thing, right?
And you're talking about the William Byron one about the intentionally spinning Denny Hamlin at Texas and getting fined 25 points, and he got that restored.
There was also the Jeremy Kalentz one last year. I think Matt Crafton was on there. Their record, and I don't have the number in front of me, and I should, and I apologize. Their record in appeals is iffy. Let's just leave it,
Yeah.
So here's what I got for 5 of them. One, when you're dealing with Hendrick Motorsports, you're dealing with a Rick Hendrick and a Jeff Gordon, and the panel is starstruck. Like Jeff and Rick carry a lot of stature. Rick comes in those meetings, or like the name brand, and you're like, whoa, that's Rick Hendrick. Like there's a little bit of awe, and that carries some weight. As an aside with that, there is not really anyone on the NASCAR side who carries that kind of stature. Like there's no longer like a Mike Helton type figure who like walks into a room and like, that's Mike Helton, like, kind of just commands respect. There isn't really anybody on the NASCAR side who's doing it, who has that same level of gravas, you know what I mean? And so there's that. Also, the panel consists kind of a generality, but kind of consists of old racers, right, who have been around a long time, and they don't have a connection with modern day NASCAR leadership. And they know Rick, they know Jeff, they've been around them in different situations for a long time. And maybe in some cases, some people on the panel look at it and say, well, maybe they aren't happy with how NASCAR is for whatever reason, where in the direction it's going, one reason or another, whether it's the car or whatever. And they kind of blame current NASCAR leadership for this and say, wait a second, like, you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt on my eyes, where Rick and Jeff are more old school approach. Like we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. The other one is miscommunication. Like you have to be, you can play it. We saw it last year, the RFK. We touched on it last week on the podcast. Like you have to, if NASCAR has to be very diligent and very thorough and very straightforward when it comes through these things. And if you can find a loophole of miscommunication, and maybe NASCAR wasn't as buttoned up as they needed to be, that can be an issue. And all of a sudden, a team can exploit that, which takes me to my last point. Hendrick Motorsports is really good at taking notes, at finding loopholes, and they can find the littlest thing and kind of wedge it in there and say, wait a second, this can work towards our advantage. So those are the theories that I've heard.
That was 4, wasn't it?
That was 5.
Oh.
Starstruck, old school people, not enamored with current NASCAR leadership. No one on NASCAR's side who commands the room like Mike Helton. Miscommunication, and then Hendrick takes great notes.
Okay, I'll let you off the hook. I didn't take great enough notes apparently, because I thought that was 4, but it's fine. It's fine. Maybe math's not my strong suit.
They all kind of blended together, but I mean, those are okay. 5.
Well, somewhere in there perhaps lies the truth, but again, this process is not transparent at all.
No, this should be streamed, by the way. Can we have this streamed? Well,
it doesn't even need to be like a circus or a spectacle, but I think that
it'd be great if it
when you're going to announce something that has this kind of, because this has pretty wide-ranging implications potentially, right? So it would be good if the panel comes out and says, here's what we considered, here's why we did this, here's the factors, here were some of the arguments. It doesn't even have to be like more than 1 page or something, but give us a little bit more insight on why you're doing this, because I think the whole industry is just sort of wondering. And like you said, you're going around talking to people in the garage, and all these people have different theories. And these are people who work in the industry and are well connected, and they don't know. Mm-hmm. That's not good.
Yeah, the lack of transparency on this is what hurts. And I will say this a little bit on this case is there is an appeal coming up with colleague for the same infraction. So maybe there would be more transparency in this if there wasn't that appeal, because NASCAR doesn't want to tip its hand, and they're trying, maybe they want to win this on Wednesday, and so they don't want to put it out there what just happened with Hendrick. So maybe we will get that transparency after Wednesday, and this the colleague appeal.
Well, I'm not saying on NASCAR needs to be more transparent. I'm saying the appeals panel needs to be.
Everything needs to be more
Personally,
transparent. Like everything across the
yeah.
board needs more transparency. Like it
Well,
just.
I tell you what, and this is, ooh, if this happens, okay. So
Oh, I know where you're gonna go with this.
we don't know who the appeals panel is, right? Because the
Okay.
appeals panel, the 3 members of the appeals that get chosen for the panels is from a group of people, like a rotating group and like a pool. And so NASCAR will say, okay, look, here's the pool of people. You guys, are you available to come to Charlotte and
By
do
the
all
way, I'm
this?
available on Wednesday if they want to put me on the panel.
Okay, you're not part of the pool. And I don't think that they are going to put you on the pool this year. So
Great story.
that would be quite the story. But I don't think you're going to make it. I'm just saying. I don't want you to be disappointed, but I don't think you're going to make it. So let's say it's 3 different members or something, or even a couple different members than the one that heard the Hendrick appeal, and colleague loses and doesn't get their stuff overturned for the same infraction that Hendrick. Oh my gosh!
Oh my goodness!
It's
going to be.
Oh,
it's going to be maddening. Like I mean,
and yet I feel like it's very possible.
Yeah,
no, it's going to be different people.
It's different people. We don't know how they're going to present their case. Like they may. Now, if I'm colleague racing, Wednesday night, first thing Thursday morning, I would have been on the phone with Hendrick Motorsports and been like, whatever you all did to win your appeal, can we just hire you for the week and you come on over here and take it? Like, I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, I'm dead serious. Like, if it's Chad Canal,
can you guys tell us what you said? Like,
yeah, like
what would you? Yeah,
how'd you get off for us? We're hiring you for the week. Congratulations, you worked out, colleague. Here's your corner office. Like, but that's the case. Like, there is a like again, like people in the garage know this. Like, a colleague could get nailed for while Hendrick gets off. Like it's very possible. And this is a little bit of a take this even further in a different direction. So there's 3 things kind of happened in the last week, right? You've got the Lubers thing. We're going to put colleague and Hendrick together, and let's just assume that colleague wins its appeal like Hendrick did, right? And then you've got the Daniel Suarez thing from last week, where we both agree that he should have probably been docked points, and him just slapping him with a fine is not acceptable, but he got away with a slap on the wrist, no points. The other one is the Denny Hamlin thing. Out of these 3 incidents, only one of them may cost somebody points, and it could be Denny Hamlin for something he said on his podcast. That blows my mind. Like these other 2 things, which is an infraction that should be penalized heavily. Both of them actually, both infractions should be penalized heavily. One for running into someone on pit road, and then 2 for messing with the next gen parts. They could get away largely scot-free, and then the guy who runs his mouth is going to get dinged. He's the only one who's going to end up losing points in this whole thing.
It really is. I mean, I get that it's all different categories and stuff, but like when you consider like, okay, Josh Williams gets suspended for after being told, again, we felt, at least I felt, not you, I felt wrongly to park his car. He parked it on the track, and in a moment of anger, whatever, leaves his car on the track. He was supposed to park anyway. It was still under caution. Okay, then he gets suspended for that. Daniel Suarez comes down pit road, and I wasn't thinking that Suarez needed to be suspended.
No,
but I thought that it should have been more than a fine. Like
absolutely.
At least, again,
points,
that doesn't really send
10 points, 15 points, whatever.
Because that was sort of a dangerous move, and you have to sort of send a message. But they didn't. And then yeah, so like, and again, like Hendrick gets their points back. So as you said, the irony that somebody, for making a comment on a podcast, which by the way, it'll be interesting to see with the appeal, but we haven't really necessarily seen evidence that he did intend, aside from saying, oh, I decided to take him with me. There hasn't been like we haven't seen data or something that shows.
Yeah, it'll be
so
interesting.
Like that, but again, that's the guy that loses the points out of all this. That's the one driver that loses points out of everything that we just said happened. It's just yeah. Weird justice system.
It's fascinating.
There's a car alarm going off, so
I
don't know if more people are trying to get penalized now. I see that's something I would penalize somebody for, blowing their car alarm while I'm on my podcast. If I was the sanctioning body.
You should go check. Go be the neighborhood watchdog and make sure no one's.
Well, it doesn't look like it's my car, so
it
if
doesn't
somebody's
matter.
car is being stolen, then I think I'm good so far.
Not your deal.
Well, I mean, everybody has Ring cameras now. Somebody will see who did it. Is that not being a good neighbor? I mean, I'm on a podcast. It can't be neighborhood watch while I'm on the podcast.
Why not? Go chase him through the neighborhood.
This is a dangerous, you chasing people these days. Have you not seen these you chase people through the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Who'd you chase through the neighborhood?
This was back when I lived in Minnesota. It was like 2:00 in the morning. And some guy, so my car had been like, they had gone into my car a couple times. This happened like a couple times. These guys had gone through neighborhood cars and everything. It was like 2:00 in the morning. And so I was kind of keeping an eye out for it over this period of time. And I was up one night and I saw these guys walking down the street and I saw them go kind of discreetly into cars. And I'm like, wait a second, really? Is that what I'm seeing? And then, so I quickly threw on my shoes. And by that time, they were already down, like further down the street. And I'm like, I started walking down, kind of seeing what they're up to see, making sure what I thought I saw. And they were doing it. And this is like a block or so away. And then I see them. And then they spot me. And then they took off. And then I took off after them. And unfortunately, I wish I would have. They were so far ahead of me, I couldn't catch them. But I made a run for it.
They could have been armed.
Yeah,
wait a minute now. You did have a drive-by shooting at your apartment with bullet holes in your apartment just last year. These could have been the people seeking their revenge. This is why you don't chase people through the neighborhood.
No, that was good. It would have been great though. It would have been a great story if I had caught him.
What? And you also got your car stolen last year.
Yeah.
And you recovered that.
I did. Yeah. I did that on my own, and I discovered on my own who did it without the police's help. I actually told the police, like, here's who did it. I went and gathered all the evidence and everything. So,
forgot about that. Boy, you are really, no wonder people are shooting up your apartment. See, this is why, look, I'll look out my window. If somebody needs my Ring doorbell camera footage, I can supply that.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be chasing somebody. No, sir. No, sir. That's a bad idea. You need to watch more scary internet videos of things going bad when you do that kind of stuff, Jordan. Anyway, speaking of scary, how about that IndyCar race? Did you see that one?
I saw. I literally watched the IndyCar race on your tweets. Like, your tweets are what got me through the IndyCar race. I was in the garage
you weren't able to see any of it. Oh my
no,
gosh.
I mean, the race started. The garage opened 12:30 today. I was here, and it was like, that's, how it is when on a race.
Yeah, no, I get that for sure. I tell you what though,
so treat me like I'm an idiot and just run me through the race.
Well,
it sounds great.
This is what I will say. There's not very many races that I've already seen that I would then like be willing to go back and watch the whole thing through someday. I think I would do. I think I would watch that race again. It was that good. Yes. That was like one of the best IndyCar races I've ever seen. Now, Indy 500, okay, I mean, those there's been some really, really good ones of those, but like aside from the Indy 500, this one, do you remember that famous, I don't remember what year it was, that the last Fontana race they had that was absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, 2015, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds right. I mean, that was like absolutely thrilling. I mean, I'm not saying this was as good as that. There were some moments. I mean, it was really good. But I mean, it was like, wow. I was literally.
So what made it so good though? Like, what was it that was?
First of all, I mean, the racing was incredible. So it really had everything. So it started with like a really good battle, like side by side, guys kind of dicing and all that stuff. And then once it got sorted out, it turned into this like Pato award show where his car was just like unbelievable. And they had one caution. So it wasn't like he was just going caution free, but he lapped all the way up to second place. There was 2 cars left on the lead lap. And I mean, it was like, wow, but because of the dominance and the way he was doing it, and at the high speeds they were doing it at, it was still like, wow, I'm not turning this off. Like, this is unbelievable. And then a caution comes out and it turned into like, okay, well, actually we're going to have to do like a little bit of fuel mileage strategy here. But because they were also like, the leaders were fairly close to their fuel number, nobody wanted to lead. So everybody was packing up at the front. So it was like, that. Remember like those great old like Chicagoland IndyCar races?
Yeah, back in the IRL days.
Oh, it was like one of those, like just this great 1.5 mile racing. I mean, just like this close to each other. It felt like they could crash at any moment.
It was an old school Texas race, basically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was super, super thrilling. And then, there was another caution and, because, things tend to get backed up. So then they were all able to pit So then fuel was out the window and they could go hard. So you had all these different sort of like everything that you would want out of a race. Like you're getting this, you're getting this. And so then they go hard in their race. I mean, they were racing their guts out for the win. It was spectacular. And Romain Grosjean ends up crashing, basically coming to the white flag. And you didn't get that, photo finish, but it was still like the laps up to that. I mean, rarely am I, so engrossed in a race that I'm going to I can't sit down. Like I have to stand up in front of the TV, nervously pacing or saying to by myself, watching it oh my gosh, like that kind of thing. It was truly one of those races. It was just so good. It was so good. Our friend Nate Ryan, I was just reading his article before we started the podcast. He wrote on an article about how basically old Texas is back. Some of the PJ1 wore out, but now here the question is, are they going to be able to keep it? Because, we know that Texas has already been looking at, okay, well, what can they do reconfiguration wise? Because the feeling is, and Will Power said this in Nate's article, they're probably just going to do whatever's best for NASCAR. So Nate,
I mean, that's where their bread's. I mean, that's their biggest revenue thing is what they do in NASCAR.
So unfortunately, as good as this race was,
it could be a one-off.
It could be going away, depending on what SMI decides to do with Texas. But it would be a shame because, I mean, so I guess the IndyCar's hope is when NASCAR goes back there this fall, please have a good race. Please don't be the typical NASCAR race there, because that might be the only thing that can save it.
That's wishful thinking.
What's that? Wishful thinking?
That's wishful thinking, having a good NASCAR race at Texas.
But I mean, wow, for IndyCar, this was an absolute banger of a race. Fantastic. I'm telling you, I don't know how you watch, I don't know if they have it on Peacock or whatever, but if you can find a replay of this race, sit down and just enjoy it. I mean, it was great. It was really great.
I know what I'm going to do tomorrow then. I was going to watch it anyway, but now I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah. I just think, and the other thing is, I think this sort of goes along with sort of a trend of what we've been seeing recently. But, we were talking about last week at COTA, the lack of the stage cautions. You still have the stages, but you pitch the cautions for them, right? And to see this race, as good as it was, play out completely naturally, right? They didn't need to stop it. Stuff happened to make it a good race. And at the end, okay, unfortunately, it didn't under green, but I guess I've come full circle in my view of overtimes and stuff, because after all the stuff at COTA, all the circus stuff with the 3 overtimes and all that stuff, I'm kind of over all that stuff. I didn't need them to bunch it up one more time and be like, okay, IndyCar, you got to get a green flag finish. Send somebody into the fence. Because I mean, it was dangerous enough. You don't need to have more carnage and then kill somebody over this. This was a freaking dangerous race. Graham Rahal got airborne at one point, and he's lucky he didn't go into the fence, because he went wheel up over another car. And the older I get, again, this won't surprise anybody who regularly listens to this podcast, but the older I get, the more I'm I don't think we need the contrived stuff, the stage breaks. Again, overtimes. I don't know how you do it for NASCAR, but I'm more going into the direction of sort of just letting the race naturally play out. It's racing, it's motorsports. Sometimes stuff happens, but just, it's fine. Let it play out. It's fun. It's enjoyable. You're shaking your head.
No, I don't like, I can understand the stage breaks. I agree with you about stage breaks. I'm over stage breaks. I've made my case about that. I just think it is, in this day and age, when you are trying to capture fan interest, and if you give them an anticlimactic finish, because the race ended before a caution comes out with 2 laps to go and the race is over, I think you're gonna kill your audience. I think you're gonna leave them dejected, hey, I didn't get to see the finish I wanted. And in this day and age, I don't think you can do that. I think you have to offer your audience a reason to stick around and make it exciting. I just think it's a losing recipe, and you're gonna have too many people upset that they're not getting a finish. And having a race finish under caution, at the scheduled distance, is not going to be something that is going to be well received by the masses. I really firmly believe that. I think there may be some old school fans who are on board with that, but I think there's going to be a lot of fans who are like, no, I want to see a good finish. I invested my time in this. I want to see a finish.
I wonder if you'll feel the same way after tomorrow. You probably will after you watch it, but there was nothing, okay, yeah, I could have got the side-by-side photo finish or whatever out of the IndyCar race, but my heart was still pounding so much, even after they had finished under caution. There was nothing more that I wanted from that. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, like, oh, this was so great until this. I didn't need it. Like, and Matt Weaver had a great point on Twitter too, and I think this gets lost sometimes, but when you know that the race could end at any point, and like it's the final 10 laps and a caution at this point, they're not going to be able to get it restarted, and that is the race for the win. Like that, you have to make the pass now. You can't wait until the last lap. You can't be like, all right, I'm going to bide my time here and make a slingshot. Like, you're racing hard as if that is the last lap, and that makes it even more compelling because it's like, we got to go now. I got to be in front now, and I'm okay with that. Like, if everybody knows that going in, if you're going to do that for super speedway at NASCAR, like, okay, this is it. This is it. Like, we know there could be a wreck at any second, any moment, and this is it. Again,
You already have that anyway with the overtime though. So why? I mean, you have it with, because if the caution comes out with one on the white flag lap, it's over. So like you have a little bit of both.
Yeah, but these overtimes are just getting to the point where every, it's almost like, for a while, when they implemented overtimes and they implemented stage break stuff, it's like, oh, we got to do something to spice this up. But that almost is like a, sort of an admission that, in a way, that your product isn't good enough without those. And I think that NASCAR has a good enough product. I do. Like, NASCAR racing is exciting, and things are going to happen, as we saw at COTA, naturally to bunch up the field again.
The first time there's a caution with like 3 laps to go in a race for debris, and the race is over because of that, it's going to be, people are going to be throwing things on the racetrack. It is going to be so deflating when you get a caution that's maybe questionable and the race is over. Like,
you're right. I mean, but
you're going to piss off your audience like that.
There's a lot of people that would resonate with, though. Like, okay, well, that's racing. That's motorsports. Okay. It
doesn't have to be motorsports. You can change things up. Like,
yeah, but not okay. If you're going to do that, then I agree with what some of the drivers were saying and what we said on the podcast this week too. Okay, keep overtime, fine, but okay, go to single file finishes or single file restarts.
Like, I think that's something that should be
tired of
adapted.
Every single, we saw it in F1, which we'll talk about in a minute. But these restarts, when there's late race restarts, people are going to run into each other. People are going to run over each other, and it just is it's like, you watch it and you're like, oh, I know what's going to happen now. Oh yeah, it just happened. Like in the truck race, right? Like on, Nick Sanchez and Zane Smith are racing hard at the end of the truck race, and you see how they're going, and you're like, oh boy, Nick Sanchez is really crowding him here, and he ends up taking out Zane Smith.
Why is that not going to happen though? If you get rid of overtime, why would that not happen with like 3 laps to go? You're like, oh my goodness, there's only 3 laps left. These guys are going to, and so then what? And then you're just like,
but by overtime, it's almost guaranteed, because you're like, this is it. This is your last chance.
You get rid of overtime, you might be guaranteeing it where it's going to happen in regulation, and you're going to have nearly every single race,
I don't know, man. I'm just getting, I'm getting old. Yeah, I'm pining for the days of just the more purity and less contrived rules in racing in general, because I like when it's better. Sports are better when it plays out naturally. That's just
I get so tired of the racing. Racing has to be pure, and this, like, tell me, there are so few. It's not Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR. Like, what is a pure form of racing? Like, I don't know. Like, you have to continually evolve your product. Every major league sport is doing this, from soccer to baseball to NFL to hockey. They want to make their product the most exciting and fun and entertaining thing imaginable. And going back to a way where you are maybe going away from that, like, that to me is not a winning strategy. I'm not saying it needs to be all gimmicks and a circus, but there has to be to create a way where you're going to have your audience leave going, that sucked. I'm not happy with that. I wanted to see that finish play out. Like that doesn't get them necessarily maybe wanting to come back. Yes, it plays to a certain crowd, but I think in the big picture, in a bigger crowd, I think you're kind of sticking it to them a little bit.
Do you think 3 overtimes at Coda with the mess that happened, that gets people, that makes people go, wow, I
Like
can't wait to
I
watch
thought
that
about this.
again.
I mean, obviously, this has been the topic du jour this week.
Right.
Well, and I thought about it a lot. And I thought Mike Davis had a really good comment on the Dale Jr. download that's kind of resonated with me. And I thought a lot about this. And I don't know if I 100% agree with it, but I do think there's some truth in it. Like NASCAR spends a lot of time kind of like every week it feels like we're talking about something they should know, whether it's overtimes or rule changes or double file restarts or this and that. It's like just kind of own who you are. Like just own it. Like you guys are we're this is a sport that you're gonna crash into each other and you know it's gonna be all hell break loose. Like own it. Don't try to like shy away from it. Like, oh, we need to be more like F1 or this, that. Like, you know what? This is who you are. Accept it. And again, I'm not saying you need to go complete circus, and there's definitely a fine line, but like this is what people kind of want to some level. Like you cater to them, give it to them. And I'm
Who
not saying
wants, okay, I hear this. I hear that argument. I heard the same clip. I like Mike, of course. I agree with 99% of what he says, probably. But
not this though.
the thing is, people say, well, this is what people want. This is what NASCAR's built. This is the entertainment. When you look at, okay, and again, look, not everybody's on Twitter. Okay. So like, I get this is not necessarily reflective of the fan base as a whole, but when I see comments on posts when things like Coda happen or whatever, and you hear the driver comments as well, I don't think people, I'm not convinced people actually do want this. I think there is sort of like I think there are more people that are sort of in my thinking than maybe people realize. And you're saying, well, this is what people want. Look at the TV ratings this year. They're losing like 600,000 people every week. So who exactly? And this has been a season where largely, this one wasn't an overtime finish, but wasn't it like 5 out of the 6 races before today have been decided by overtimes this season, something like that. I mean, it's been overtime, and it's not doing anything to. I don't see it doing anything to pull more people in. I mean, I think they've given these rules a fair shot now. Stage breaks, unlimited green white checkers, all these sort of things. I'm not convinced, and I haven't seen anything that I see people going, well, yes, I'm a NASCAR fan because of this, or I'm pulled in because of this. I need to see this. I think a lot of more people are like, oh gosh, oh, here we go. My driver, has been 5th all day, but now here come 3 overtime restarts and he's going to get taken out at some point, just because everybody races like crazy. And I don't know. I just, again, I get that I'm the Clint Eastwood meme,
Yeah, you're the old man standing on the porch screaming at the young kids.
but I do think there's more people along my thinking than maybe. I don't know.
You may be right. Like, and you make a really good point in that if you look at the television ratings, and maybe there isn't an audience for this. Maybe I'm wrong. That hey, there is an audience that wants to see, and maybe it's worth trying it the other way just to say, hey, at least you have a comparison, right? And so I don't know. I just think that when you look at where sports are at, you have to make sure that you have a compelling product and that you give people a satisfactory finish. And I think that if you get a few of those in a row, people are going to be really upset. Maybe I'm wrong.
Speaking of unsatisfactory finishes.
Oh no, I was very satisfied with Formula One. That was great.
What? How were you satisfied with that? Because your team
Chaos had a great time last night, man. That was fantastic.
Formula One race in Australia, our Luke Smith pointed out that first F1 race in history that was red flagged 3 times.
Yeah.
I mean, and to end it how they ended it with them bickering on the broadcast about that too, by the way. You liked that?
No, the FIA is just like it's like the most.
They're like, okay, let's red flag this. We're gonna restart the race because we need to run out the last lap, but we don't have time to go with a green flag lap. So we're gonna lift the red flag, have everybody get back in their cars, run it, come off the pit lane, run under caution. And then as they come across the line, like that's the end of the race.
I wouldn't trust the FIA to organize a kid's birthday party. Like, it's so ass backwards on how they do things. It's just like
Well, it takes one to know one on organizing kids' birthday. I wouldn't trust you to organize one either. So
I throw great parties. I throw tremendous parties. Like, as somebody who used to throw a big party once a month, like parties are my forte. Like, if this journalism
for
career
kids,
ever work out,
it was the kids part that was the key.
You get some clowns, you get some punch, you find pin the tail and donkey. It's easy.
Okay. All right. Please continue with what you're saying.
Like,
I'm sorry.
it's just like you're sitting there and they're combing, like they ran through, like they had 4 different scenarios like they could pick from. It's like, like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, you can criticize NASCAR all you want to, and they are certainly deserving sometimes, but like, it's not nearly, they don't get nearly, the FIA doesn't get nearly enough criticism for how backwards and how convoluted their rule book is, and how it gives the impression, whether it is or not, of like they're just making it up on the fly. And it's like race to race, week to week, you don't know what you're going to get in terms of late race situations and how to manage it. Like, it's bad. It's horrible.
Well, first of all, I do think they get a lot of criticism. I don't
even think it's enough, though. It feels like it just blows by, and it's just like they're just oblivious.
So here's the difference, which is why I think the FIA looks especially bad, is because they present themselves as like, we are the pinnacle of motorsport. We take this so seriously. Every little bit of our rule book has to, you will be summoned to the stewards. You will get this. You will get this. We are the, blah, blah, blah. And then when they can't officiate a race very well, and,
which happens a lot.
Yes. NASCAR's not out there saying like, we're perfect. We don't do this kind of thing. Like, NASCAR will come out and say, oh gosh, yeah, we probably should have done this sometimes, if they have a bad call or whatever. Right. But the FIA are just like, oh, well, like, it's just the error that they have. Oh, absolutely. Arrogance is the perfect word.
Arrogance it's just not good. I don't like, they have too many rules. It feels like it's on the fly. There's no consistency. You talk about lack of consistency. There is zero consistency. A lot of their stuff doesn't make sense. We're going to penalize this guy for this. Oh, but this guy gets away. It's bad. And I think that how that race unfolded was a microcosm of the issues that Formula One has.
Yeah. Well, another issue
they have is that
Max Verstappen keeps winning, even in a chaotic race where you're like, oh no, this is, he gets beat on the restart. There's multiple standing start restarts. You're like, oh, this, he gets
one of which, by the way, the deciding one, he like the photos certainly didn't look like he was within his little box thing, right?
Yeah, where's the FIA on that one?
Yeah, he was we're going to penalize Alonso a couple weeks ago, but yeah, it's just
and Esteban Ocon in the first race, all that stuff. But Max is over the line. At least it looked like from all the viral photos we've seen. But no, that one doesn't. I never heard an explanation for that, but that was kind of weird. But yeah, Max wins again. His closest competitor, Checo, has to do a standing start after a terrible practice and adjustments.
It's a horrible weekend for him.
Qualifying, P20 because he, they couldn't get the brakes right or whatever, and he kept, he went in the gravel and terrible weekend. He tried to salvage what he could, but it looked like for a while I was like, oh, could we see the Lewis Hamilton? I was like,
no, George Russell.
Well, George Russell went out early because his engine blew up.
I know. Oh, don't worry. He took the lead early. Like, he had the great restart, took the lead. And I was like, can't wait. I'm hoping if he wins this race, this is going to be great fodder.
But then, Lewis passes Max too.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, okay, that caution came out for Alex Albon. That was a scary crash, by the way, because the way he came back on track after going through the gravel and the cars, had somebody come through and that would have been really bad. Like T-boned him or the back of his car, that could have been really bad.
There's a couple accidents yesterday that were like,
that Australia track is sketchy. I'm telling you, it's
fast,
sketchy.
Yeah.
But so that didn't seem like it was going to be a red flag. That's another thing too. Like, okay, yellow flags displayed, safety car, right? And Russell pits because why wouldn't he? And then they're like, oh, actually it's going to be a red flag. And then he got completely screwed because everybody got to come down and make, F1 rules are weird where it's like, yeah, you can, unlike NASCAR where you can't do anything under the red flag. Oh yeah. Yeah. Make all the
Tires? You
adjustments
want
you want,
tires? Put
changing
tires on
tires,
there.
free stop as everybody's standing still for tires.
Brother,
So
let
his
him make an
strategy
engine
was,
change.
yeah, I mean, so Russell was completely screwed after that, even before his engine blew up. But even then, you're like, I was thinking, I was like, oh man, Lewis Hamilton, maybe he could win this race, and Jordan in the middle of the night is going to have to eat all the crow for Lewis. But no, it didn't happen like that. But I mean, great racing between Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. Respectful. Yeah. Alonso's sort of taken more respectful approach toward Hamilton this year after criticizing him last year. And remember, like he said, he made that comment like it was only because of his car and all that stuff. And now they
got a little history.
But they've been nicer to each other, much nicer, like the last couple of weeks. And you don't like them being nice to each other?
We want bad blood. We want feuds. We want guys,
I don't mind feuds, but I mean, don't take shots at Lewis being one of the greatest. I mean, he just had a good car. No, it was more than that. Sorry. I mean, he did have a great car, of course, but like, is Max only doing well right now because he has a great car?
Doesn't hurt.
I'm not saying, of course it doesn't hurt, but like, come on, like he's an elite, amazing, talented driver as well.
In Formula One, that's the thing. Like, you have to be a great driver, but you are never going to win a championship without a great car.
Yeah, you have to have, best driver, best car is a pretty good combo.
Yeah, it's hard to beat that.
Yeah. So, listen, that race, I saw some people firing back at me again in the Twitter mentions, because they're like, oh, you ripped Coda last week, the NASCAR circus. Oh, it's too chaotic, but you're going to say this is the best race ever for F1. No, I'm not saying this is the best race ever. It was too chaotic and crazy again. And Lando Norris, I mean, again, we have coverage on The Athletic from Luke being on the ground there and stuff. And the drivers were like, these restarts, I mean, it could have been a NASCAR driver quote. Like, these restarts are just for the show.
We should have played a game on the podcast of just taking the quote, NASCAR driver or Formula One driver. Like that. Oh my goodness. Oh, we missed it, Jeff. That would have been a fun game.
Yeah. Who said this? Right? Yeah. Because I mean, the comments are similar, but I can't blame anybody in those situations, because when you're placed in that and you're like, okay, another standing restart when they didn't have to do this. Like, this is there was another way to do this, but they're doing it for entertainment. Like, and then if everybody wrecks after that, you're like, okay, that sucked because we got put in this position. Everybody predictably crashes. And by the way, the second red flag and the third red flag, I like blacked out for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, you went radio silent and I was like, oh, I think he crashed. I think he went to bed. And then you perked back up and I was like, oh, he's back.
Well, when they go red flag and everybody's getting out of their car,
yeah,
and I was already fading because it was like, it was so hard to stay awake. I'm like, all right, because as soon as they start getting out of the car, it's going to be at least like 10 minutes till the race resumes.
I took a nap before the race.
Well, that's another luxury I don't have, Jordan. Anyway,
kids. Your fault.
Oh, so yeah, I was radio silent for a little bit there, but I was still, I just woke myself back up and be like, oh, they're going to restart in 5 minutes. Okay. Time to check back in here. Anyway, yeah. Now it's going to be a few weeks off before the next F1 race in Baku.
Oh, great track. Love that track.
That's going to be that track, sharp corners, super, super long straightaway down like the main part of the city there. Mm-hmm. That'll be fun, but I think it's not till like 3 weeks. It's like
3 weeks,
the last weekend of April. Yeah. So,
it's next week, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
So I've had more than one person say to me that they are disappointed, and you can check your Twitter mentions because they're on there too, because I've seen them, that they want you at Bristol next week. We need to get you to Bristol.
It's less than a week. I'm not going to.
If I find a reasonable flight, will you come?
No.
Why?
I don't even want to see it with my own eyes. There was the April Fool's joke. I think it was the NASCAR memes account or one of those accounts, and put out on April Fool's breaking news: the Bristol Dirt Race has been named the
I saw
NASCAR
that.
championship. And all these people DM me and they're like, did you see this? Did you see this? And I was like, I wrote back several people. And I was like, I literally would just die right there on the spot if that was the championship. I would just be like, I will simply just drop dead right now. That's it. That's it. The end for me.
I would love for that to happen just to see your reaction.
I just told you I would die, and you said you would
You're
love for
not
that to
gonna
happen.
die. You're being over the top.
Why would I want to come there? It's like seeing your let's say you had a favorite restaurant, right? Let's say you have a favorite Italian restaurant and you love going there. And
I'm literally checking flights as we talk here.
For 1 week a year at your favorite Italian restaurant, they turn it into like a 7-Eleven with ices and
Ices are
the
great.
hot dogs on like the rollers.
There's no chance in hell I'm even a gas station hot dog. But ices are great. I'll take an icy.
So they take you love the Italian food here. You love the pasta. It's fresh. The chef's great. And then you go and it's like the hot dogs on the rollers and all this crap. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this hurts. This hurts. That's how I feel about Bristol. I love Bristol, paved. Bristol dirt remains an abomination to me. And I'll try to keep an open mind next week.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
I will. If it's a good race, I'll come on and say it was a good race.
Yeah.
I will. I'm not going to be like, no, this race sucked if it was a good race.
We had a good race last year and you hated it.
No, it was a good finish. Oh. But I didn't even know there was a good finish. It was a chaotic finish.
Okay.
Anyway.
So good news. I can get you a reasonable flight. Do you want coach? Do you want business class? Economy comfort?
If you're going to fly me there, I will.
I am I will literally book your flight right now.
I don't believe it.
I will book it right now. If our company won't pay for it, then they probably would, because they would.
Why would they? What would be the return on our company's investment for me to go to Bristol on Easter?
I can actually sell this because you could write a first person story about your Bristol dirt experience. People would read that.
Listen, I think people that were going to subscribe anytime recently, they just hopped on the $1 deal, which I appreciate them for that. Literally hundreds of people were hopping on that last week for just our motorsports stuff alone. So that was fantastic. Appreciate all the new subscribers and everybody taking advantage of that. Let's talk about the Was It a Good Race poll. Do you want to
arrive Thursday or Friday in Charlotte?
Let's talk about the Was It a Good Race poll.
And I'll pick you up at the airport.
You are undefeated, Jordan. Congratulations.
5.
Last week, I thought you were giving me a free win. And it turned out that I completely whiffed on the percentage, and it was very close once again to the exact percentage that you predicted. Okay.
At no point in here did I hear you say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. You were right.
I was absolutely wrong. I don't even know why I question you anymore. Right. I think I shouldn't even guess. I should just ask you to tell all of us, me included, what people are going to vote, because you are absolutely on the pulse of how people are
I got an idea.
Doing this. Okay.
Let's raise the stakes.
No. Whatever the bet is, no.
Let's raise the stakes. I win. I make it 6 wins in a row. You come to Bristol Dirt.
Who's paying for this? Who is
Does
paying
it matter?
for this?
Why do you care? Like, who cares? You're coming. Like, why do you care? Like, I'm looking at the flights. They're not that expensive.
Yeah, because who would want to go to the Bristol Dirt Race on Easter when people could be with their families? Why would somebody want to do that?
Because you get to see your best friend.
Yeah. Who's my best friend?
Wow, that's hurtful. Thanks.
Listen, what's your guess for the Was It a Good Race poll?
So we deal, like, if I win this week, you come to Bristol?
No.
Yes, just say yes. Just say yes. What is it going to take for you to say yes?
Do you have our boss on the phone right now? Are you going to be able to get this approved?
Don't make me call. I will literally call Zach at this very second. I will do it in a heartbeat. I will put him on speakerphone and we can have this conversation. And you and I both know what he would say. And he would sign off on this in about 3 seconds. He would.
If I was ordered to go.
I'm going to text him right now. Can you please hang on?
Listen, can you just I got to edit this podcast. I got to post this on YouTube. Thanks to all of you watching, by the way. Thanks to all of you listening. Can you just
guess for today?
Up? What? Your guess for the Richmond race? Yes, Richmond. You're sitting there at Richmond. Do you want to go home?
No, I got writing to do. I don't feel like I'm ever going to leave. I don't know. I'm just gonna go 72%.
Why? What's your reasoning?
Actually, no. Can I scratch that?
Are you going to go lower?
Yeah, I'm gonna go lower. I'm gonna go
Of course.
68%.
Yeah, I don't even think it was that good. So, I will Price is Right you
Of
reverse,
course. Of course.
and I will go 67.9%.
Okay. All
It's
right.
gonna be my
Of
first win
course.
of the year.
So you're gonna go 69.
No, 67.9.
Oh, 67. I thought you said 69. So I'm trying to book a flight here. I was looking at Delta
By the
prices.
way, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about this.
Oh boy.
So I don't know if you saw, but Elon Musk has announced that I think beginning April 15th, which would be or maybe April 13th. So I think Bristol Dirt will be the final one before this goes into effect, if he follows through on his
Fitting.
word. To vote in a Twitter poll starting April 13th, you have to subscribe to Twitter Blue. So you have to be giving Twitter the
To
$8 a
vote.
month. What?
To vote in the poll, you have to be Twitter Blue.
To vote in the poll, you have to be
Oh,
paying
man.
Twitter just to vote in the poll.
That's
So
crazy.
I've already decided I will not be doing that. I'm not going to make people pay
Fair.
$8 a month if they don't subscribe to Twitter Blue to vote in a poll.
That's fair.
That's absurd to me. So we will have to move it to a different way, whether that's back to the Google Forms or a different polling site. You know, we went through this last year. I looked through different polling sites. A lot of polling sites want to charge you a bunch of money to have thousands of votes, all this stuff. I'm not really into that. Might go back to the Google thing, but in case we do, I don't want to hear the accusations again that, oh, Jordan's undefeated, so you've got to rig the poll again.
Oh, they're coming. Let's go. Oh, no one.
I'm
By the way,
trying to.
Americans got cheaper flights in Delta, so I need your frequent flyer info. Seriously, I can save like $28.
Oh, Jordan, somebody's outside, and I think they're doing a crime in my neighborhood. I need to go be on neighborhood watch. So we're gonna have to end the podcast here.
All right.
Everybody. Oh yeah, it looks like they're running down the street. I'm gonna go get my shoes on. I have to go right now. I'm sorry, everybody.
Be a hero.
It's been a great podcast, really enjoyable. So everybody, I'll talk to you next time on the Teardown. See everybody. And for our YouTube people as well. Thanks for watching.
That's fun.
I don't know what Jordan's going to do with this scheme here, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be at Bristol.
Literally looking.
I believe that you're looking at him, but I don't believe I'm going to be there at this time next week. So
just say yes.
I need to go talk to my wife and see what she thinks about me leaving.
Yes, go talk to her, see what she says.
Yeah, it's going to be a great answer. Okay, everybody.
You want me to text her?
Talk to you later. See ya. Bye.
Bye.